Hi everyone, this is the Conflicted Critic back with another book review, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite books, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Now, Dostoevsky was born in 1821 in a Russia which was plagued by a quagmire of social, political, and economic problems. He went on to publish 12 novels, 16 short stories, and a range of other works, including poetry, which managed to inspire some of the greatest literary uh, and scientific minds of a modern world, including Nietzsche, Sigmund Freud, and Albert Einstein. He was an Orthodox Christian who was inspired by socialism in the earlier years of his life, but later on went on to adopt more conservative values. Works generally revolve around the dark themes of suicide, poverty, human destitution, and morality. His stories were also unique in a sense where they tried to adopt polyphony, which is basically a literary style of writing or narration in which several characters are allowed to present their own perspectives and their own ideas in the greater framework of the story. Nietzsche considered Dostoevsky to be the only psychologist from whom I had something to learn. Freud called The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky as the most magnificent novel ever written. Einstein considered Dostoevsky a great religious writer who explores the mystery of spiritual existence. Even Kafka was deeply inspired by Dostoevsky, especially by some of his works, including The Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment, which are the two books that are said to be the greatest inspirations behind Kafka's own literary masterpiece, The Trial. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, as the name suggests, explores in detail the reasoning, morality, purpose, and the drive behind the commitment of a single act of crime. It's basically the story of a young university going student, Raskolnikov, who resides in 19th century Russia and who believes the world around him to be inherently unfair and, you could say, fragile, right? And he basically justifies tyrannical deeds by great men to further the socio-economic progression of mankind. It is my view that if the discoveries of Kepler and Newton could not, on any account, as a result of certain complex factors, have become known to people other than by means of sacrificing the life of one person, the lives of 10, 100, or even more persons who were trying to interfere with those discoveries or stand as an obstacle in their path, then Newton would have had the right and would even have been obliged to get rid of those 10 or 100 persons in order to make his discoveries known to all mankind. Driven by this Napoleonic ideology, Raskolnikov decides to commit a single act of crime through which he would gain the necessary resources to lead a life of socio-economic virtue. Is Raskolnikov morally and emotionally equipped to bear the consequences of the commitment of such an act of crime? Will his ideological fortitude provide him enough strength and durability to stand up to these consequences in the context of achieving a greater purpose or greater good? These are the questions that Crime and Punishment explores through a wonderful story, through multiple characters, in the backdrop of the city of St. Petersburg, and tries to answer them uh, through the unfolding of these multiple storylines. Dostoevsky based Crime and Punishment as a counteract to Russian nihilism. Nihilism in literal terms means nothing, or the absence of hope, the absence of light, the absence of a future. Now, at that time, during 19th century Russia, especially in cities like St. Petersburg, the nihilists were on the rise. They were questioning every moral, religious, social, and traditional custom or ideal that was present in society. And they were basically encouraging individualistic thought. They were encouraging people to question these pre existing ideals, considering the ideals of rationality, stoicism, and logical thinking. They were basically disillusioned by the hypocrisy and frailty of social and religious reformers of the past. And nihilists were basically bringing all of these ideals to court and creating this air of moral skepticism where every individual was being encouraged to question these ideals, to put them in doubt, and wherever possible, to not implement them and to basically force people to change their thoughts regarding these ideals. Dostoevsky in his book discourages Russian nihilism by presenting a very extreme perspective of this ideology in the shape of Raskolnikov. He believed nihilism to be a negation of the naturally present emotions and morality in man, and considered them to be, you could say, a denial of what man is supposed to stand for. So even though Dostoevsky's protagonist is a nihilist and an egoist, what Dostoevsky argues is that Raskolnikov is actually driven by desperation. He is destitute, he is in abject poverty, and to uplift himself of these circumstances, to change the situations around him, to have a greater say in the societal patterns around him, he becomes a nihilist, and he chooses a path that Dostoevsky doesn't agree with. Dostoevsky believes that the moral freedom that Raskolnikov is chasing and wants to attain is basically waging war against himself and against God. He believes that an individual like Raskolnikov, who is wholly practicing this particular form of nihilism, would ultimately find himself in a position where his own moral compass, his own ethical predicaments would leave him in a position that is out of his control, where he wouldn't have control over his emotions, his intellect, and he would be in deep depression and doubt regarding the act that he has committed or the ideology that he has chosen to pursue. All in all, he considers this nihilistic rationalism to be an extremely idealistic and unattainable way of thinking. So all in all, Crime and Punishment became an instant favorite of mine, not only because of the heavy matter which it discusses, that is, the morality behind crime, and the extensive dialogues that happen between each characters regarding this morality, this intellectual conundrum in which Raskolnikov finds himself, especially the dialogues which happen between Raskolnikov and Detective Porfiry, or with his friend, or even with the people around him, his sister, his mother, and his love interest. But I also loved how the city of St. Petersburg has a very important role to play in the gender narrative. Everything seems to be connected with the city. The style of writing is absolutely profound and beautiful. And overall, I loved reading this book. It was intellectually, you could say, draining, but overall, the story rejuvenated me, especially how the author decided to end it all. So yeah, I hope you liked this book review, and hopefully I'll be back with another book review very soon. So if you like my content, if you want me to produce more, please like, share, and subscribe, and also let me know what book would you suggest to me, and what book would you like me to review for you all. Thank you.